Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Ashley Nicole Hall here with me today. How you doing, Ashley?
Hello, Cedric. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give you a nice, warm welcome today on this evening broadcast. Let everybody know I appreciate you coming into the building, the people that we can see, as well as the people that we cannot see. And I'm very excited to have this conversation because I want you guys to go out there and follow Ashley Nicole on social media. If you see what she does in action, you would understand why she's here. Her work is phenomenal, and we're going to get into it. We've got comments coming into the building. Ashley, talk
Yes.
to us about where you were born and raised.
I'm from New York. I was born and raised in Queens, New York. So, I'm American. I was born here in New York. I'm still in New York right now as we speak. And
Okay.
yeah, I love my city.
What was it like for you growing up in Queens, New York?
I had an interesting childhood, I would say, because one, I'm an only child.
Okay.
Two, I'm very tall. I'm 6'3". So I went through growing up at a time not like now where you see a lot more tall children and teenagers. Like back then when I was growing up, there wasn't too many people that I could relate to,
Okay.
and it was very interesting growing up in that time. But Queens as a whole, like I was from Queens Village, it was a nice area, a lot of children. We played, we did a lot of outdoor activities. It was a fun time, but it was also, I just have a different perspective of how certain things were with kids and stuff like that because of my height. That had a lot to play into my experiences.
You all spent a lot of time cracking jokes on one another. Am I right or am I wrong?
Always. You remember, I don't know how old you are, but do you ever remember like those snap books from back in the day, like your mama, all those your
Oh yeah,
mama
yeah, yeah,
jokes?
yeah, yeah. Yep,
We
yep,
used
yep.
to go through those type of things back then, yeah.
I'm 32 by the way.
Okay, I'm a little older.
Yeah, as soon as hey ladies and gentlemen, drop a one in the chat if y'all feeling this right here. As soon as she said she was 6'3", I had like four, five, six different jokes I already know she heard before.
Wow.
But I
Wow.
want to keep the tone of the show, fairly serious, but we can have some fun here because I know that you was tough to play hide and seek with because you saw where everybody went. You know, I know your grandmother asked you to unscrew a few light bulbs, you know, and people always have had something to say about your height.
Always. Still to this day. It never ends.
Were you the tallest cousin?
I am the tallest cousin. Yes,
Right,
I
right,
am.
right.
Out of all the boys, everybody, yeah, I'm the tallest.
That's a gift, though. It's a gift,
It
and
is.
it's an excellent characteristic. So I think that's quite a trait there for you. Now, what was your childhood like?
My childhood was great. I mean, I grew up with my mom. She was a single mom, but we also were in the same household as my grandparents till I was like 13. So I always still, even though I had my single mother, my grandparents have been married for like over 50 years. So I always got to see the single aspect of things, but then I also saw the married life and the love and just all those things that exude family oriented. We sat at dinner every night. We had dinner at 6 p.m. There was always a lot of routine. And my family was small, but we always did a lot of things together. So I had a great family life. Yeah.
What were your conversations like with your grandparents growing up?
Primarily my grandmother, we had a lot of different conversations. And back then, and still to this day, she's always been my backbone. Especially with me going through the experiences of being bullied when I was young for being tall. And then I was the only child, so I didn't have like that team of like brothers and sisters that, could step in for me.
Mhm.
My grandmother, she always instilled upon me about being strong, standing tall. Like she was like, don't ever slouch, don't ever look ashamed of your height. Like you come from, this full line of tall Amazonian women. Like, be proud of yourself. She always told me to speak up. She always told me to stand tall in my opinions. We just always had a lot of conversations about self-love, things that were very important, especially back then, because not only did I face like, bullying from my height, but also, within the Black community, there's a lot of colorism. So, me being brown skin, I would travel and go to like away to sleepaway camps when I was young. And there were a lot of like Spanish girls and light skinned girls. And, I would always see the difference of how they were treated as opposed to me. I didn't always like my complexion. My grandmother was very fair. She's very fair skinned. But because even though she was fair skinned, she still shared her experiences with me because her mom, my great grandmother, was very, very dark. And they, back then with racism was very, very, it was just very everywhere. People would think and approach my great grandmother as she was the nanny. They didn't think that she was actually my grandmother's mom, and they would question her. And don't you treat her like that, because my grandmother was so fair skinned. They almost thought that she was white. So, she faced it in a different aspect, but it was very interesting to hear, her experiences and how she was raised and the things that she faced growing up, and to hear about, my late great grandmother and what she went through. It really did help me, and it gave me a good sense of who I want to be as a woman growing forward, and how to handle certain situations that I was facing and dealing with as a young age.
I'm thankful that you had that level of camaraderie in your family. And it's very, very, very powerful imagery for me to envision your mother and grandmother saying, let's take a moment, brace ourselves against the condescendence of society, and remind one another that we are strong and that we come from a legacy of strength.
Yeah.
And you do speak for a different perspective when you speak for the tall African American woman.
Yes.
A lot of African American women, they can't say that I am legitimately tall. And in all of the conversations that we have about African American people, the tall African American woman has a story that needs to be told, and it needs to be put in its proper perspective. And so when your grandmother says to you, you come from a long line of almost Amazonian Black women, I want to hone in on that a little bit today, because women of your exact stature were queens who ruled kingdoms and who ruled civilizations prehistorically. There are lists of Black women your stature, 6 feet Black women, who were beyond significant in their societies. They were matriarchs of societies. They raised families. They built men. They were men makers. They were homemakers. They were civilization builders. And there are many, many queens of African descent who were tall, specifically tall women, who were builders of civilization. So I want to raise awareness about that, and the majesty of you being in that lineage as well.
Thank you so much for that. That was powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what sorts of activities did you get into in middle school?
Honestly, in middle school, I was just more academics. I was not, obviously, because I'm so tall, people are just like, oh, play ball, do this, like, run track because you're tall. But I was very dainty, very pretty little girly girl. I was just more into books, more into writing poetry. I did a lot of poetry writing back then. I did a lot of reading with books. I didn't start really getting more into activities per se, maybe more towards high school. But the only thing I can say that I did, in middle school time was like double dutch. That was like the big thing, for girls back then. I did a lot of double dutch, a lot of just regular running and playing with my friends and things like that. But yeah, once I got to like high school, that's when I got into like, I love volleyball and swimming. I kind of branched out a little bit more.
Do you remember any of the books that you read in middle school? Were there any series that you remember, any particular books that you really enjoyed?
Oh my goodness. One series was Goosebumps. I used to love that series back then, and like the Babysitters Club, and the Dream Doll, American Dream Girl doll. They had their own book series, stuff like that.
Mhm. As you transitioned into high school, is that when you began to really be a lot more confident about your physical stature and your
No,
overall? No?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. High school actually made me feel more uncomfortable with my height in high school as opposed to middle school. Because middle school, I was more with I felt more comfortable because there were a lot of kids. We all were in the same area. A lot of them I went to elementary school with. So, even though I was tall, everybody was kind of used to me. And, once I got to high school, I went to a huge school. It's campus magnet school. So it was four schools in one. I don't know if you're
Wow.
familiar with Queens, but it's like the old Andrew Jackson school. So
Okay.
it was a huge school, a lot of kids, and I didn't really know anyone. So, when I went in there, I felt so uncomfortable. I'm very like off the bat, very shy. I'm very like, I like to just observe situations. I'm not the one to just like go up and walk up to people and just start, hey, what's going on? And, I'm more comfortable now in my skin as opposed to high school. High
Okay.
school was very challenging, I would
Okay.
say.
How did you get through it? What were the key relationships for you in high school that enabled you to get through it with the level head?
I would say one, my grandmother, as I mentioned earlier, I would always speak to her. And also being a part of the church. I grew up in the church. So back then, I had certain spiritual women in the church that, I was very close to. And, I could speak to them about certain things that I was dealing with. And journaling. I did a lot of journaling. That helped me a lot. And I probably will touch back on this again, but I didn't even know at those times, like writing, how powerful writing down your feelings and just writing things down is. But that helped me a lot because there were certain things that, you're not going to share with everyone every single thing that you're feeling and dealing with. So journaling for me, that was a big outlet. That
Okay.
helped me a lot.
Did you ever talk to your grandmother about your journal entries?
No, actually, I didn't. I kind
Mhm.
of really kept that to myself. I didn't really share that or talk to that with anyone.
Mhm. Did you ever feel that you were missing a relationship with your actual father? Did you ever look for that?
Yes, I did. When I was young, I tried to ask some questions. Unfortunately, it was difficult because I asked my mom a couple of times. It was kind of like real short-ended questions and things to kind of get me to like stop asking about them. And then at one point, I remember like I brought it up, I think when I was like preteen or probably 12 or 13. And my mom did finally gave me some information. Like, look here, I found his address or his number. You could call him. But by this time, it was after me hearing like, oh, he knew about you all these years. He just decided not to contact you, or he made promises and you would sit at the door with your bag waiting for him, and he just didn't show up. So after kind of hearing those things, and you also were like curious, it got to the point I was like, you know what? Why should I want to reach out? He doesn't want to be bothered with me. That's how I felt because of what I was hearing. Um, so after that, I kind of just left it alone. Unfortunately, I was just like, well, yeah. And I know there's now being an adult, there's always three sides to a story: the truth, his side of the story, and then also my mom's. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Was it ever a circumstance where you can't miss what you never had?
No, I used to think that, but now when I reflect on growing up, it affected me a lot more than I was realizing back then, because when you're young you don't really know things. Now that I'm in my mid 30s, I look at that and I'm like, wow, if I had a dad, a lot of these things, I'm sure a lot of the choices I made and certain things that I did would not have happened because I was missing out on that male figure. I did have my grandfather, for a lot of things, but it wasn't the same. So it tremendously affected me.
What would you say to a young lady out there right now who is anywhere in USA? She stands out for one or two different reasons, and she doesn't have her father in her life, what would you say to her right now?
I would tell that young woman, first, daily speak life into yourself. Look in the mirror every day. I don't care how you're feeling, even if you at first don't believe it. Tell yourself that you are loved, you are a queen, you're beautiful in your own way. God made you the way you are for a particular reason. And you have to speak life into yourself. That's the utmost important thing in the world is self-love. Know that you're beautiful. If nobody else tells you, I'm telling you, you are beautiful. Aside from that, I would also say to, I know it may be hard to find some type of male figure, if it's through your church, if it's a, a good neighbor, someone that maybe they wouldn't mind talking to every once in a while, or someone that you can ask certain questions to. Find someone that, may be able to mentor you in that type of way. That would be a good thing as well to help.
And for those men out there who might hear your story and they might know a young lady who could use a healthy relationship, what would be the healthiest way for a man to build a relationship with a young woman so that we have an idea of how to do it correctly?
Well, one, I would say it depends on the age. If they're a teenager, you absolutely should go through her family, her parents, make sure that's okay first. But once everything is okay, or depending on the age of her, if she's older, if she's a young adult, I would say first start off, very welcoming. Don't push any boundaries. Kind of leave it up open to her to give you more of information of what she's comfortable with sharing at first. Tread lightly, but just try to make her as comfortable as possible. And once she builds up that comfortability and trust with you, then you can definitely be able to build that type of relationship with her.
Okay, that's great. That's great advice. Gentlemen out there, we're raising awareness about the fact that the young ladies in your community whose fathers are not around still need relationships with healthy, positive, and productive men. We're listening to Ashley today, and she's making it plain. She still needed a relationship with a man. And we have to be mindful of that when we survey our communities and say, how can I help? As a man, it's not always, go grab a young man and do the mano y mano thing. Sometimes it's going to have to be identifying a young woman who could benefit from having a father figure or an uncle figure or just an older male figure in her life. Because the truth of the matter is, someone needs to have a conversation with Ashley about how to engage in relationships with men, how to build healthy friendships with men. What is this thing about men? It's not just men come from Mars and men go to Jupiter to get more stupider. All those types of euphemisms, hold less and less weight as you engage in the real world, and you really need to understand the opposite sex. So let's all be reminded of that. Ashley, yeah. When did you start getting into the culinary space and take interest in foods and stuff like that?
Yes. Okay. So ever since I was pretty much born, I was passionate about food. Just off the get-go, I was always into food and eating and different types of foods. My great grandmother, who we daily called Mamo. That's actually who my company is named after, just like Mamos, in memory of her. She was a professional baker and cook. So when I was young, I would, stay with her a lot. She made everything from scratch: pies, cookies, bread. I mean, Jewish rugelach, which is a Jewish pastry that most, especially back then, a lot of Black people did not make. She made things that were comforting, but also it was of a certain type of level that, most typical Black families did not even know about. So I always was very interested in what she was doing and wanting to watch what she did. At that time, I helped her. I didn't take part in doing as much as the cooking, but I just always sat and absorbed everything. I watched her, and she was always like, "That's how you learn. You just gotta watch." And I'm like, "But I want it." And she's like, "No, just watch." You know, they was like, just sit and just watch, just take it in. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then, you know, to this day, I still remember certain things that she did. You know, she didn't write recipes down. She didn't
Wow.
share her recipes. You know, she just knew everything and she did it. And what I loved about what got me really into the passion side of food is tasting her dishes until this day, still remembering everything that she cooked for me, still remember the taste, still remembering the feeling that I got when I ate the food. That is when I knew, like, wow, I wish one day I would be able to do that. But back then, I didn't think that I had that in me. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not good like that. You know, she's excellent. She was made for this, you know. So when I got to high school, you know, I started cooking a little and doing a little this and that. But I still was like, you know, pretty much running from my calling, because once I got to, you know, once it clicked, it pretty much took me a few years ago and me hitting almost rock bottom, me becoming so depressed and just like, well, God, why am I here? Literally crying, God, why did you make me? Like, why am I here? Everybody seems like they got it together. Like they just were born and they're artists, they're, you know, a musician. Like they just know what they're supposed to do. Why do I not know what I'm supposed to do? It took me going through that and going through the motions, going through me denouncing my faith and really sitting there facing myself, and it clicked. And it was like, what is the one thing that I've always been passionate about? The one thing that people are like, wow, Ashley, you really should, you should do something with this. Like you really got talent, cooking. And once that clicked, I didn't look back. That's when I just was like, you know what? I was working a full-time job. I hated my job. I was working in the financial district, an office job, 9 to 5, dead end, like literally every week, living check to check. But I'm, you know, assisting, managing things, doing all these type of roles, but I'm not happy. I'm miserable every day. I dreaded to go to that office.
Wow.
I said, you know what? Once like it clicked for me, I went and I signed up for culinary school. And, you know, I'm a mom. I have children, 2 children. I said, you know what? I don't care what it takes. I signed up for school. I went to school at night and I worked during the day and I did my culinary thing and I incorporated my business while I was in school. And I didn't look back after that.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get some hearts and likes in the building. Let's get some hearts and likes in the building for the victory, for the triumph, and for the epiphany that Ashley Nicole had. That's right. Drop your hearts and likes in the building. Put a number 1 in the chat if you're picking up what she's putting down. Now, I just want to backtrack a little bit so that we can all go along for this journey with you. Now, when you said that your grandmother used to cook foods from scratch, what does that mean when you say cook food from scratch? And let's take a dish like macaroni and cheese cooked from scratch. What does that mean?
Okay, so from scratch pretty much means not using a box or like some generic bottle and just pouring it in and saying, "Oh, okay, I cooked." It's also a good scenario is pancakes. Pancakes from scratch is totally different from making an Aunt Jemima box of pancakes where you mix it with some water or some milk and then you just put it together. From scratch means, you know, you're taking every single fresh ingredient, you're putting that love into it, you're measuring those things, you're seasoning it. That is from scratch. My great grandmother, she did that from scratch. I watched her do pie crust, bread, like things that, you know, most people, when I would tell my friends growing up, like, oh yeah, and they're like, well, what? Like, because most of their parents didn't even cook, so they were like, this is unheard of, you know. So that's what from scratch is.
I got some very powerful words and imagery out of what you just talked about. I'm going to ask you how to make pancakes from scratch, by the way. But for right now, you know, I love how you said that it was made with love, and it just connected the dots for me that when you cook from scratch, when you're measuring out the ingredients, you're thinking about the people that you're trying to feed, and you're thinking, how much salt does my family need? How much of this particular spice? Oh, this time I'm going to give my family, you know, a little bit of this seasoning because it's good for them. And so when you're cooking with love, then your family is going to get that added benefit of all of the thought and the character that you put into that meal. So I think that that's absolutely huge. What we
Definitely.
can, what we can make from scratch, we need to make sure that we're making it from scratch, because in that way we can put love, literally put love in the stomachs of our family members. Now, these homemade pancakes. How do you make homemade pancakes? Well, not homemade, pancakes from scratch. How do you do it?
Like you want like you just need eggs. You need I use buttermilk for mine. So I make buttermilk
Okay.
from scratch. I mix some vinegar with the milk. You know, you gotta whisk that and then put that in the fridge because it needs to be extremely cold. Like the key to good pancakes is using very, very cold ingredients. That's
Really?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to have cold eggs, cold milk, and having a really good hot non-stick or cast iron pan, and then also a little oil or a little butter to coat the pan. But once you do that, you have your flour, your sugar, your baking soda, a little salt, the butter, like mix those things up, you're gonna be great. But I love buttermilk pancakes because they're light, they're fluffy, you know, you have those nice good pancakes, and then when you get that pan nice and hot, you have those cold ingredients, you get that nice light brown color in the pancakes. But I don't like those very dark or crispy, crunchy pancakes. I like mine's really authentic, and you know, that's how I like to eat. That's how my family likes to eat. So
Right. Huge. For all of the people out there who might be working a traditional 9 to 5 job, and you're discounting some of your talents. You've watched your grandmother cook. You've watched your parents do this family tradition for years and years, but you're discounting that. And you're saying, no, but that's not the same as me working down here in the financial district. What Ashley is saying to us is, don't discount the talent that lies in you, that your family has shown you for generations. Think about it. Think about what you've seen your family members doing time and time again. Think about what you loved about what your family has done, and realize that that could be a potential life changer for you. It changed her life, and we're going to talk more about the journey that she's pursuing today after this brief message. You guys don't go anywhere. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. Ashley, how you feeling out there?
I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good too. You know, you had this epiphany that really changed your life, and then you decided to go to culinary school. Now, what was that experience like?
Culinary school, one, it was very fun. I should say that. It was fun because it was something that, you know, I'm passionate about. I was so eager to learn and like to cook different things, and just like I was just all in. Um, for me, coming from working all day, being a mom at that time, being a wife, having all these responsibilities and then having to put everything aside to now go into school at night, it took a lot. I had to push myself constantly. I had to keep myself motivated, keep myself really surrounded by positivity, because it was a lot of times that I was like feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can really keep doing this. Like I want this, but that's when you're faced with moments like that, you really know, like, okay, if you really want something, or opposed to, okay, I said this and it looks good, do I really want to keep doing this? I got to those points. I'm like, no, I really want this. This is what God put me here for. So I really had to just make things happen. And it was an absolutely great experience being in culinary. It was so great. Like, I really loved my teachers. We had very small class settings. So, me and the other students, like, we got to really work with each other, taste each other's things. You get to see people's different styles of cooking. It was just a real eye-opening experience for me. And yeah, at the time, I was the only one that incorporated my business in school. So I'm now starting to take catering on the side. So on the weekends, I was doing like little catering jobs, going to school at night, working during the day, and then trying to, so I was just doing a lot of multitasking. But it was an absolutely great experience. And from that and doing that, I actually, from going to school, I got nominated. My school nominated me for an Outstanding Graduate Award, which I actually won last year. So that was an amazing, amazing moment for me. Just going to that school and seeing my teachers and staff and how much of my story made an impact on them, and that they nominated me for that award, and then me winning and, getting to share my journey to all of these top people at these New York State schools, and, getting to meet people and them hearing my story. It was just an absolutely amazing time. And it just was confirmation that everything that I did was supposed to happen for me.
It sounds like you felt liberated. You felt liberated when you were in culinary school. You were learning new things. You were doing your passion, and even though it was challenging, I'm not seeing for you where you gave up. It sounds like not only did you take the challenges that you had because you were a mother, you had other responsibilities outside of school, but you were able to take it all in stride, and you were able to really relish in that opportunity, and you incorporated your business. So you was like, no, I'm taking off with this thing. And I find that, I find that to be commendable. Ani King Riley says, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm listening to your story, and I'm thinking about the thousands of young people who are in the foster care system in America. Some of them, by the time they reach college age, they already have children. They might not have had their father in their lives. They might have had some adversities already. But if they have the desire to become a chef, I'm hearing from your story that that's a viable option, and that's a viable idea.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you touched on that, because one, two different experiences that I had in learning about sharing my story and how it affects and motivates young people and, their situations. One, I didn't go to a typical 4-year culinary college. I went to a culinary trade school. So from doing that, and I spoke at NYU. I spoke at a graduation for my culinary school, but it was for the following year of the graduates, and me just teaching them and telling them that, you can do anything as long as you have that will and that drive. They came from all different types of backgrounds, children with, disabilities. There were older people there that were currently in culinary school that, somebody told them, you worked the job for 30 years, now we're letting you go. And they had to start over from scratch.
Wow.
So you have people like that. You have other children that came from different backgrounds who weren't really familiar with the English language that well yet, and they were in that school. So you had all types of people, and they're listening to me share my story. And I'm letting them know, like, listen, you can really do it, because I didn't figure out my life purpose till I was, 30. And I'm thinking like everybody has to have it together. And a lot of people really don't have it together. And I had to understand everybody's journey is different.
That's
Everybody
right.
knows their life purpose and figures out things at the time that they're supposed to. I wasn't supposed to have it together back then, but I had it together at that point to motivate other people that were in my environment, that were able to hear my story, and to tell them that it's still possible no matter what type of situation that you were in. And then the other point I want to make is I actually was teaching before the pandemic. I was teaching cooking classes at a middle school. So I got to learn and be around these children and just speak. I have my son is actually 15, but I don't speak to that many teenagers or preteens that that are not in my family. And from being at that job and hearing their stories, it touched me so much, because you don't realize, a lot of people think, well, what the kids got to be stressed about? They're kids, but these kids had so much going on and had so much eternally that they're internalizing, that they're not sharing with others about, their family life. Just like one child, she shared with me, like, my family, we don't have dinner at the table. Nobody sits down. Like, we all sit in separate rooms and we just eat. I'm like, what? You don't? I mean, even if your mom does, if she doesn't cook, you don't all sit together. She's like, no, we've never done that. And, just little things like that I spoke about earlier, that, I was fortunate when I was growing up to like sit and have those family conversations. Those are important. So, being around those kids, they have to see some type of positive hope that, when I shared with them, like, listen, even though I didn't have that same particular childhood that you had, that doesn't mean that it has to stop or end with you. Like, when you have your family, when you get older, you can start these traditions. I told her, like, why don't you say to your mom, like, hey, you know what, mom, can we do something different this time? And like, can we sit down at the table? Or have your mom be like, hey, Chef Ash taught us this in class today. I was like, she loved the meal so much. I'm like, why don't you show your mom the recipe? Maybe you guys can do it together.
Right. That's
Just
right.
little things to kind of encourage kids, because it's not easy for them.
That's right. Now, I went out and I discovered your website. Your website looks great, and I'm going
Thank
to
you.
show. Yes, I'm going to show everybody your website so that they can go after this broadcast, visit your site, and really
Thank
discover your
you.
whole movement. But I also found a video of you speaking about fear and how to overcome it that I want to play for people today. So you guys sit tight, because Ashley Nicole is not just a chef. She's somebody who's standing up and speaking out just like her parents told her to. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
We all are human. We all have emotions. So we all experience or had a time in our lives that we faced fears. Now, me personally, I've had a lot of fears that I had to overcome. And as with a lot of people, it was really, really hard for me to learn how to overcome that by myself. It's definitely a process, and it's not something that you can change overnight. With everybody in panic mode today and, going crazy, buying a whole bunch of products and, wearing masks, and everyone's trying to avoid contact with other people, which is great. We should all take serious precautions when it comes to trying to have social distance with others and just making sure that we're on top of our hygiene and staying as clean as possible. That's great. But what I also want to talk about is not having such a high fear of this virus and disease, or not even just this disease, just in general with life. Say you are going to interview for a job, you're going to have some fear over the job, maybe just even interviewing with your potential boss or the hiring manager.
That's
You're
right.
going to experience some fear. But there's definitely ways to go about the situation and to overcome that fear, instead of already, setting up in your mind to be negative about it and to say, oh man, I'm so scared. I'm not going to know what to say. I don't know what I want to do. I may mess this up. All of those negative thoughts create negative actions.
That's
Just
right.
It's a cause and effect. So just as you're thinking things in your head, those things come out in action. So
That's right. That's right. Hold on. First, I want to revisit that. My grandmother used to always say to me, first you think about it and then you do it.
Yeah.
Now, talk to us about the power of positive mentality in that kitchen? When you got a fire here, you got a fire there, you got ingredients all over the place. What role does your mentality play in being successful in the kitchen?
Okay. So in order to explain that, I'm going to tell a short story of an experience that I had in the kitchen where I nearly broke down.
Okay.
And so this was straight out of culinary school. I didn't go to my graduation. I missed my graduation because I got hired as my first job. I got hired as a personal chef and I was flown to Aruba. And I was hired as the chef, the only chef to cook for 24 people in a mini mansion for this business retreat for self-made. Well, the retreat itself was for business owners, women and Black women and men of color. But every guest on the retreat that was speaking were self-made millionaires. So it was huge, and it was the opportunity of a lifetime for me. But also with that, it was a crazy experience because it was my first time being a personal chef. I didn't have any experience at all. You know, I only had my cooking at home. I just came out of culinary school. I didn't have anyone with me. I didn't have a team, nothing. So I'm in this kitchen and I can't even remember which night it was. It probably was the second or third night that I was there. And mind you, this is me cooking and being in the kitchen 15, 16 hours a day. Okay.
Wow.
Like I was getting up at 4:30 every morning. I was in that kitchen by 5 and I was prepping, I was cooking all day long, you know, cleaning all day long into the night and then doing it all over the next day for a week. So during that second or third day, there was 2 panic moments that I had, but I remember being in that kitchen. What I first would start to do to try to prepare myself, I would play gospel in the morning. I would pray, you know, I would have a conversation with my mother to kind of get my mind right. That was first, and that was very important. But when I had this breakdown, it was when everything that could go wrong just seemed to go wrong in the kitchen. Nothing was coming out the way it was supposed to. I'm supposed to get this food out at a certain time, and that's not happening. The dishwasher broke down. Then, you know, we're in Aruba, so the temperatures are different. It's not in Fahrenheit. I have to calculate all these things in Celsius. Ooh. You know, I was hit with things. I prepared for months a certain particular menu that I was going to do because the owner and the person who hired me wanted me to create a Reuben type cuisine. I'm like a chameleonaire, so I kind of just adapt to anything. So I did my research. I got in contact with the supermarket, the only supermarket in Aruba. One, there was just one in that area. I was prepared. I get there, shelves are empty. They have nothing. And ooh. I'm freaking out because I got to cook for 24 hungry people. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? They didn't get their shipment. And I didn't know all of their food, their products come from Jamaica. So something happened with the shipment. They didn't get anything. So I had to everything going wrong in the kitchen. I have to, okay, there's no food. What am I supposed to do? I had to really go back to, you know, those times when your mom is struggling and times are hard and you got like rice here and like a can of salmon and you got to make it work. I had to kind of really do that. But it was a moment where I really broke down and I just cried. And I literally was like, what the heck am I supposed to do? I'm getting paid money to feed these people. I'm supposed to be professional. I'm supposed to have it together. I can't do this. I was like, I can't do this. I freaked out, you know, for a moment, just that one moment. In order to get myself out of it, I called my mother and she instantly we started praying. And I prayed and she was like, now wipe them tears. You got this. I said, I got this. And then I got up the phone. I'm like, I got this. I can do this. I would not be here if I couldn't do it. I can do it. And I wiped them tears. I got something to drink. And I said, no, I'm going to do this. I don't care how long it takes me. I don't care if what I got to figure out is going to get done. And I did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody put a number 1 in the chat right now if you are feeling what Ashley Nicole is saying to you. This is a moment right here where you connect with so many thousands of people in your experience. A lot of people, if they're fortunate enough, are going to have a moment where they feel they are way out there at sea. No pun intended. But for you, it was you're gonna have that moment where you feel like you're way out there at sea, and you just lost an oar. There's a hole in your canoe, and you've got to figure out how not to capsize in the middle of the ocean. And it's
Yeah.
those moments that make you. You say you want to be a chef. Guess what? A chef is not an easy thing to be. You know,
No.
a chef and a food cooker is not the same thing. A chef and
Yeah.
a food prep person is not the same thing. A chef is somebody who is going to take that hot skillet and is going to transfer it without dropping it. They're going to mix those ingredients properly and going to make something from scratch.
Yeah.
You turn around because you hired a chef and it's going to be something delicious for you to eat. And people can apply that to their lives no matter what route they take. And I said you got to be fortunate. Because see, when you get into a cookie cutter position, you know, there's always a book and a manual that could tell you what to do next. You could rely on the policy. But sometimes when you take a step out there on your dream to venture out into a life that, you know, you're manifesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta call home, you gotta pray, you gotta get in that mirror, you gotta talk to yourself, and you gotta make it happen. But those tough moments are what make you that which you set out to be. So I think that's great. Were your customers happy out there in Aruba?
Absolutely. I still to this day, they order from me. They kept in contact with me. They support me. My clients are everything. Let me tell you, I don't know how many business owners could say that, but I love all of my clients. They hold me down so much. They promote me. And that's how my business has been growing so rapidly because of the word of mouth. And I say that to anyone in any field, word of mouth is key. I don't care how much money you put into marketing and this and the third, word of mouth can make or break you.
So you've made money as a chef.
As of lately, yes. See, I want to say that because, you know, when you first become a business owner, it's hard. It's absolutely hard. When I first incorporated the business, I was still working a full-time job. I was still, you know, doing this as a side thing. It wasn't until actually last year in the beginning, I would say March of 2020, that I kind of, you know, just only been working for myself. But it's a lot, you know, people just like, oh, I want to run a business. It's not that easy. You have to sacrifice a lot. You have to reinvest money into supplies and all of these different things that people don't take heed to. There's a lot of back end work. There's a lot of getting your hands dirty and blood, sweat, and tears that goes into running a business. So you have to be prepared to not make money in the beginning, you know?
Right. What are the trends out there in the culinary world right now? What is it that people are beating your doors down for?
Okay, so right now, because of the pandemic and everything going on, primarily my two key things that people are like, it's high demand are my private dinners. I do a lot of romantic setups. I create a whole ambiance with candles and gems and roses. And, you know, I cook at their home. I serve them. I do a whole table spread. So I provide that, you know, that nice, unique, romantic experience for them. And then the other thing that I get a lot of demand for is meal prepping, because a lot of people, they're working like crazy or they don't know how to cook. They want to eat healthier. Everybody's wanting to take care of themselves more and kind of look more health-wise. So they get a lot of meal preps from me. So those are the two things that I've been doing a lot of lately.
What exactly is meal prepping?
Meal prepping is having a bunch of meals that are all within proportion of what you should typically eat in a meal, not like a huge buffet, but, you know, nice, small, packed meals that someone can pick up and they have throughout the day and just go and warm up. It's something easy for them to grab each day. Okay, now I have my salmon and my rice. I can heat that up and I'm eating that. So the whole week is planned for you of what you're going to eat. You don't have to go and be like, oh, let me stop and get fast food. I know at home, I got this meal already waiting for me. That meal prepping is made to be easy. It's the ease, and it's a way for you to stay healthy and stay on track.
How far out does a client tend to meal prep?
I've had the most that I've had was 30. I'm sorry. One client ordered 30 meals for me, but it depends. One, if, you know, if it's for themselves and like another family member, how many times they eat a day. I have certain clients that, you know, they're I have to count like their micros because they're working out. They tend to eat more. They're eating 4 to 5 meals a day. You know, it all depends. All of those are factors that you know, you have to take into consideration when you're doing a meal plan.
Okay. Okay. And so for those people who are actually, they don't even have to be in the New York area because you went all the way to Aruba. But for those people who are considering, you know, having a private event and bringing you in, you know, what is your repertoire when it comes to private dinners?
As far as what, just setting something up or just like the process?
Yeah, so like what sorts of meals do you cook? And
Okay.
pretty much, yeah, that's what I want to know. What sorts of meals do you specialize in?
What I specialize in, what I call my food elevated comfort food. I do all types of elevated, I mean, comfort dishes. So things that I grew up familiar with. A lot of my family was from down south. And then when I was young, I traveled a lot through the Caribbean. So I fell in love with spices and certain Caribbean dishes. So I kind of intertwine all of those things. I do a lot of seafood. There was a point where I gave up meat for like 2 years. So I was heavy on seafood. So I get a lot of demands for seafood. I do some vegan dishes. But other than that, it's comfort food like pastas, nice like coconut turmeric rice. And I do like escabeche and snapper. Like I do all of these type of things. But the thing that makes it great for me is that any client that I have, because I can do a wide range of different things, I can customize and cater to whatever they're looking for. So I have certain people come in, they have a private dinner, but they're all vegan, or they have everybody eats meat except for one person is a vegan. So, you know, then I could create small dishes for the vegan person, make sure everybody is happy. So when people come to me, I first find out what they like, what are they looking for, and then I kind of customize from there. And then I offer a lot of my staples that, you know, my best sellers that everybody is like buy, I offer those to them, and then we kind of come up with from there.
Okay. And what's the name of your company?
Just like Mamos.
And how do you spell Mamo?
Mamo.
Okay. Okay. What are your top three? What are your top 3 or 4 spices? I want people to learn about new spices. Maybe some that they've never heard of before. What are some spices that you feel you get good feedback from your clients using?
Turmeric. Turmeric is a mild spice, but it has a very significant, distinct taste, and it's very, very healthy for you. So I try to incorporate that in a lot of dishes. Sometimes it's in things that people don't even know I put it in, but it's good to have it in there because of the health benefits of it. Also, cayenne pepper. I don't really ever cook. You'll never see like black pepper in my cabinet. I use white pepper sometimes, but cayenne pepper is a healthier pepper. I like the spice of it. You don't have to use as much to get that effect. I also like, let me see, what is it? Cumin.
Hold
Cumin
on. Does cayenne pepper come in a powder?
Yes, it's a ground pepper.
Okay.
Also cumin. Cumin is amazing, amazing, amazing. I love cumin, and a little bit goes a long way with cumin.
Okay.
Those are like my top 3 that I love.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what will be some herbs that people could use in their meals as well?
Fresh herbs. I always love fresh parsley, fresh cilantro, fresh dill is really good because I do a lot of seafood. So all of those fresh herbs, you can taste the difference as opposed to when you use something even that's dry and freshness has a very different taste and a different effect. So parsley, dill, cilantro, those are, and also I love scallions, like onions, different onions give different flavors and effects as well. But I love like the taste of scallions on food.
All right. We are down to the final minute. I've had a great conversation with you today. It's been great meeting you here on America's Next Motivator. We're down to the final 40 seconds, okay?
Okay.
My first question, what is survival to you?
Survival is very different from living. So me, survival is all about doing whatever you need to do to get through and to get by. that is survival. The nitty gritty, the middle class and the poor working class people that are just surviving day to day. They're doing whatever it is to put food on the table. That's survival.
What is success to you?
Success. Success, I do not always gauge by monetary. I feel that success is the impact that you leave on people. When you enter a room, when you leave the room, when they see you working your day to day, that impact is success. It's whatever that affect, that feeling that they get from seeing what you do and you bring life or leave something with that person. That's a part of success. I feel like that's success, not just monetary, not just being a celebrity status. Anybody could be successful.
That's right. What is greatness to you?
Greatness. When I hear greatness, my first thought is God. And I know we're all human, so we cannot measure up to God. But to be in all aspects of your life, excel to the point where when you leave this earth, that legacy, the people that remember you, those memories, that's a part of greatness. When they're saying, wow, that person was so great. Everything they did, they helped everyone, they spoke love, they spread positivity. That is greatness to me. And that's what I strive to be.
Ashley Nicole, I want to let you know that I've listened to your story today. Our live audience has heard your story today. And there was a whole lot of value in there, a lot of gems that you gave out today. And I want to give you your respect while you're still living. I want to give you your respect. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat because we're giving you your crown today while you're still alive to receive it. Giving you your crown today. And we are letting you know, letting the world know that you, Ashley Nicole Hall, you are America's next motivator.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping by today, all right?
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do, just like you did today, is stop by and pick it up.